Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought we would create a vintage Christmas card this time around. So I've shown a few different designs on Facebook. The ones I've shown on Facebook in the last few days are this wreath one. These are part of workshop 111. So I've shown that one on Facebook. I've shown this one on Facebook, again with a lovely insert. And which other one did I show? Oh, I also have shown this one on Facebook as well, which I've also shown on YouTube on my new release video. And again, they've got a lovely little insert inside. So I thought we would create a vintage one this time around. And it's lovely because I'm creating them in a relaxed manner. There's no rush at all. So it feels so much nicer creating them with no rush. So I'm going to create another Christmas card. And I'm going to use my branched heart, and I'm going to use the branches on the heart. All my stamps are falling off because they're so well used. So let's just clean the back of this stamp. Mainly because I just know how dirty the stamps can get when you're handling them all the time. You can give them a wash as well. There we go. So I'm going to use the branch section of the heart just to add some branches. And I'm going to use Sand Dune and Portobello. I've got these inks online, but I'm loving the vintage sort of feel to the inks. I'm going to add touches of Portobello. And then I'm just going to add the branch just towards the top. Just so we've got those branch. And then you can add a second generation, if you wish, to the branches. So I'm then going to take the, what's this called? Sand Dune again. So take the Sand Dune. Then I'm going to take the Portobello, just with a few touches of the Portobello. And you can just wipe your finger across there if you've got a little bit of ink just on somewhere maybe you don't want. And you can add more depth to the branches afterwards. So let's add this here. There we go. And you don't need to press really hard. You can just press really lightly. So you can see across the top there, I've missed a little bit. It doesn't matter in the slightest. Let me have a look at that, make sure I've got the darkest one. It doesn't matter in the slightest. You can just go back in, add a little bit of that branch, and you can just sort of over stamp. It really doesn't matter one bit. So I can just use the Sand Dune. I just use the Portobello there on its own, but you can just use the Sand Dune, and you can just add a little bit more depth, and you can over stamp. It doesn't matter. It works quite well, so that you've got those branches at the top ready for our bauble. So you've got sort of the lovely branches at the top, which works quite nicely. I'll keep that in case I want to use that again. And then I'm going to use my snippet stencil number 6, which is that one. I'm going to use the snippet stencil. I'm going to add the bauble right sort of at the bottom. So we'll just grab some low tack tape. And when you've applied some wet ink or wet paint or anything like that, or moisture, make sure that your low tack tape is definitely low tack. So we're just going to sort of de-tack it a little bit. You can place it on some clothes, you can place it on your skin, but if you've obviously got, you know, you've got delicate skin, I would recommend you just add that to some clothes. So let's just do this so that you can see. So just adding something there, just at the top, like so. We'll just add that at the top. Right, I'll just grab my blending tools. Now I'm going to have a few blending tools for my VersaFine Clairs. I'm not going to mix them up with my Distress oxide inks. So I'm going to have some for my VersaFine Clairs, and I'll just put them in a different area. Let me just put that fan on a little bit harder because it is quite humid. There we go. And then I'm going to blend with the same colours. So I'm going to keep this brush for my browns, and these are my blending brushes, and I'm holding the brush further down just so I can pick up a little bit more of that ink. And I am using the Sand Dune. Now, if I'm not sure how the colour's going to take, let me just place this just at the side here so I don't touch the edge. If I'm not sure how that colour is going to look, I'm going to hold my hand a little bit higher up on the blending brush so that I don't apply it too hard, just in case I'm not happy with the colour. And I'm quite happy with that, so I can bring my hands a little bit further down and just apply that a little bit firmer, just with a little bit more depth. And what I'm doing is I'm going over and over the same area just to apply that layer of ink. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more ink and just apply some more of that ink. And the blending brushes mean that I can either, with an H, I can either have a lighter blend or I can have a richer, deeper blend. And here I'm using sort of an oil-based ink and I'm still blending with that. So it works quite nicely. So let's just add a little bit more colour here. Do you know, it would be easier with a little bit of copier paper instead of faffing with a little bit there, but it doesn't matter. So I've just got my Sand Dune, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the same brush because they're sort of the browns anyway, and I'm going to use the Portobello. So I just want a little bit of darkness with the Portobello. I'm going to add a little bit of that darker colour just to give me a little bit of that shading. So I'm just going to go around the edge just to give Maybe a little bit round there. And if ow, I'm just kicking things here. And if I lift that up, I can easily place that back down again and just see if I'm quite happy with what I've got. So let's just lift this up. Actually, do you know, I'm going to make it even richer. Make it even darker. Just on this little bit on there, but not too much. Little bit darker here. There we go. Let's just lift this up. You see that low tack tape now doesn't affect if the ink's still got moisture in there. And you can see, even if I am using the VersaFine Clairs, I've still got a beautiful blend. It works really nicely. Right. I'm just going to wipe over my stencil just while the ink is still wet, and just wipe over there. I can use some hand sanitizer if you don't get that all off there. It's entirely up to you. So what I'm going to do then is take the stamp set TE22, and we're going to use this little bauble here. You could even, let's have a look. They're designed because you can place the baubles inside the stencil bauble. That's the whole point of them. Actually, we're going to have that one. So we're going to have the bigger bauble from TE22. Let's take a bauble, and then I'm going to take the Shady Lane, what am I like? Sand Dune. I think I left my brain cells somewhere. So I'm just going to take the Sand Dune and just add that Sand Dune. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the Portobello and just add a little bit of the Portobello just around the edge. So let's just then, where we're going to have that, shall we have that bang in the centre? Like so. Now, if you don't like, you know, colouring with your pencils or pens or anything like that, you can just add your shading and colouring just with ink pads. Doesn't that look just beautiful? So you can just add it with your ink pads. It doesn't, you don't have to add any pencil work if you don't wish. However, I do like to add a little bit of pencil work. Just give that a little bit of a blot. So I've got 3 pencils here. It's only this one I want to add some pencil work to. So I've got, and I've just done this by eye, my dark colour is French Grey, PC 1074. My mid colour is 50% French Grey, PC 1072, and Putty Beige, PC 1083. But if you test the colours, you'll see that these don't look that grey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of this colour. So this is my dark colour, and just repeat that, 70% French Grey, PC 1074. So this is my dark colour. I've already got a dark edge there, so we'll just leave that dark edge. And if you look again, as usual, where my fingers are on that pencil, you can see I'm holding that quite high up. I'm then going to take my mid colour, which is PC 1072, 50% French Grey. And I'm just going to blend the colours, those lines out. So I'm just adding a little bit more depth. But what I've shown you already is that if you don't like using your pencils or anything like that, I've already shown you with the ink pads how you can add some depth just with your ink pads. I'm then going to use my, let's make sure you can see that, I'm then going to use my Putty Beige, I love this colour, PC1083, and then I'm just going to, and the thing with the putty is it works so well with the sand dune. It's just wonderful. It works brilliantly with the sand dune, so I just love it. So just again, can you see where my hands are on that pencil? Okay, then I'm going to go back to my dark colour, the PC1074, and I'm going to come in with a little bit more depth. I'm going to smooth out the sort of gaps within the card, etc. So we're going to smooth that out. Just with that darker colour. Then I'm going to come to my mid colour, and I haven't brought my white pencil down, so I'm going to go to that mid colour. And just again filling in the gaps so that it smooths out. Then I'm going to go to my light colour, which is the putty, what was it, Putty Beige, and then just blend out the Putty Beige. And it just gives a little bit more depth to that bauble. And I'm not going to leave it like that because 2 layers aren't quite enough. So I'm going to come in now. I'm just going to add a little bit more depth. And just add more layers. So this will be my last layer. So again, just repeating the process with that dark colour. So then I'll go to the mid colour. Just to blend out the lines. And it starts to look a lot smoother. With my colouring. Just looks much smoother. Just so you can see that. Just looks a little bit smoother. And then I'm going to come in and just add a little bit of my white pencil. Now the white pencil will pick up that darker colour. So you'll pick up some of that darker colour, just so that you blend out the lines on the lighter colour. Just blend that out. Now, there's no point in me trying to add white highlights at the moment. We need that to relax a little bit because we've worked the card quite a bit, so we just need it to relax a little bit. We'll add a little bit of our sort of twine area there, and then I'll just grab my black pen. So I'll just grab the micron pen. I wanted to call it a pit pen then. I'm just going to add maybe a little bit more depth on there. Okay. So we just added it so that that is growing up there. And just giving that a little bit of time to rest. So we'll just grab our water brush. Let's move the pencils out of the way. And just add a little bit of water. It's okay. So just to give a little bit more depth, I'm going to add my grey Inktense pencil just around the bauble. Now the colour underneath won't move because that's permanent. Just bring a little bit of that, and it's just adding a little bit of the shading just to the bauble. There we go. Let's just move those pencils out of the way. I'm then going to grab my background stamp that I often use in a lot of my projects, which is TE11, Background Elements, because it's just the right amount of text without being too much, so it works really well. So I'm going to use the sand dune just to add a little bit of text to my design, and I can just lightly press the text, and it's beautiful because it just adds just enough without overpowering the design. It just works every time because it just doesn't overpower too much. Let's just add, and it just gives me that vintage feel without being too much. Let's have a little bit up there now, like so. So it works beautifully without being too much on there. Let's just give this a wipe. And I'm giving this a wipe because I'm going to go to my Versamark ink. So let's have that Versamark ink. Now I don't really want to go to the Versamark ink before I've blotted some of this. So let's grab some copier paper. Because what happens is you stamp with that brown ink, and it's actually, let's lift this up so you can see. If I just tilt it slightly, can you see that shine? That's because the ink is still wet. So we want to give that a blot because the surface isn't porous, so therefore the ink's just sitting on the top. So we can give that a blot. You can give it a dry if you wish. Obviously where it touches the white card, that's not a problem because it's porous. So you can see it's where the bauble is, that text is just there. So we've just blotted that a little bit. We'll then take a little bit of white embossing to add to it, but we need to add a little bit of the anti-static bag just to that bauble, because you want the embossing just to stick where you want it. So I'm going to use my Versamark ink, and we're just going to add a little bit of ink. We'll sprinkle our embossing, but we better turn that fan off, as we're going to have embossing everywhere. And now you see, I can then see if I actually want to add any more embossing than I've got, and I don't. It just works quite nicely. What you do need to check is, where's my little, I've got a little brush. There we go. If you can feel a little bit of embossing powder just on your bauble. Ooh, you knock that off then. And if you've got any that you don't want here, just remove that at this stage. Just with a very soft brush. And I haven't got my heat tool, so we'll just grab the heat tool. And just add this little touch of embossing. Let's just move that out of the way. Move this a bit further up here. And we need to make sure that that heat tool is just heated up a little bit. And then we can heat our embossing. And there's something about this stamp, it just adds just the right amount of text every time, without it being too overpowering. I don't know why I waft my heat tool all the time, but that's me all over. So what we've got now is we've got that white embossing on there, and it is white, but because it's on that brown background, it sort of has like a creamy tinge to it. It just works really nicely. Right. So we need to go back to our little Inktense pencil, and I want to add a little bit of shading just around our bauble. There we go. Just give that a subtle amount of shading, and the moisture on the card will evaporate and soon dry, but just giving that a little bit of shading on there as well. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the branched heart. Let's take the heart off. Not that I'll need that size acrylic block, so we'll just take that off, and we're going to take these little hearts that are on the branched heart. Grab a little A7 acrylic block, and obviously make sure that you can still see. If your card's a little bit warped because you've used that embossing powder, just bend that a little bit. Mine's a little bit warped. So I'm going to take my A7 acrylic block and these little hearts, and I'm going to use the sand dune again. Ink those hearts up, can just add the hearts just to the sort of branched edge at the top. Now, I know it's subtle, but we'll add a little bit more depth to those hearts. So just add these a little bit further up. So don't worry about how subtle it is. So we're just going to add the big heart there. So I've added some ink to the big heart. And I'm just going to wipe the littler heart. And I've got embossing on that. That's it. Just going to add the larger heart. Where do I want to add that now? I think we'll add that one just there. So don't worry that your hearts are quite subtle, because we can add a little bit more depth to those. Let me just lift that up just so you can see those hearts just on there, and we can add a little bit more depth to those. So let's just do exactly that. So we want our pencils again, and we can add a little bit of that darkness to the heart. I'll just do one at a time, a little bit more. So just colour them in. You don't even have to colour them in if you don't wish. You can leave them as they are. If you leave them as they are, you can see some of the text through the heart. I'm adding a little bit more of that dimension. Let's have a look at the light one. Just blend that with the light. So just because a stamp is in black doesn't mean that you have to use that black. You can just keep it in whatever colours you want. So it's entirely up to you. I like the fact that I can change those hearts even though they are black on the stamp, just like the bauble was black. It doesn't have to be stamped in that black. You can have them just like we've got here. So we're going to grab our white pen, our white gel pen, just so we can add some touches of white. So I'm going to add some touches of white. It does show up more, obviously, where those areas are darker. So it'll show up on the darker areas. And you need to give everything time just to settle, dry, just so that you can add those touches of white and just sort of add them slowly and not too much. You can just add details. So let's add some little touches of white just to our background, just so that it stands out a little bit more. So I'm just adding a few little touches to our bauble, because the white just gives it a little bit more oomph, and you don't have to add too much either. Now I want a few touches of gold, so bear with me. You can just use a gold gel pen. I have got a gold gel pen somewhere. Have I got a gold gel pen? Yes. So it's up to you whether you use a gold gel pen or you use a Posca paint pen. I've got a gold gel pen here, and I've got these Posca PC5M metallic ones as well, that obviously I've got a bigger gold here that I can add some gold splatters just to coordinate nicely with my design. And then I can just add a little bit of shimmer without even having to use a quickie glue pen or anything like that. I can just add that little bit of shimmer just by adding a few dots here and there, just at the top. Like so. Let me make sure we get a little bit of shimmer. Oh yes, we do. So you've got your gel pen. Let me see if I can just show you the shimmer, which is really difficult with gel pen. And there's just a bit there, you can see the shimmer just from the gel pen. So what I'm going to do then is take the stencil, place that stencil over the top. Let's grab a little piece of, not that isn't a little piece of scrap card. Why, when you want a little piece of scrap card, is it not the piece that you pick up? Oh, good grief. Where's the little... Let's grab another one. So we'll just move these all out of the way, just so that, because I just want a little spritz, so let's place that out of the way. And I'm going to take the fossilised amber distress spritz, and I'm just going to give that a shake. Just so that that ball bearing starts moving, and then just give my card a little spritz. Just remember to wipe the top of your container. Just to help with that not clogging. Let's move these out of the way. Let's take our stencil. I will lift that up for you so that you can see. Let's just give this a wipe. If you didn't want to just wipe that, I mean, there's not that much on there, but you could easily add that to another piece of card. Let me see if I can lift this up for you. As this dries, there, can you see that shimmer? It's just wonderful, the fossilised amber is. But you can see that shimmer, and as that dries it gets really shimmery, so it works really well. Now I want to put a sentiment on there, but I want it to dry a little bit, and I've done another one in vintage, sort of in the same way, but this time I've just stamped the Bauble from TE22 with the sand dune and coloured them with the same pencils. And if I lift this, you can see, let's have a look. There you go. Can you see the shimmer? Which you can't get in a photograph. It just doesn't pick it up. But you can see the shimmer on there. So there's sort of another vintage one as well. So we're going to add our sentiment to this. It just needs to dry, but the shimmer now is really wonderful. It's working really well. And I don't want to blot that because that's a shame. So let's grab a little piece of card. Just so that we can stamp a word on there. So let's grab the TE22. And we'll take Winter Wishes. There we go. And I'm just going to stamp that in the Nocturne ink. And this will be the only little bit of cut out piece on there. So relatively a one layer card. Let's just cut that out. You could cut this so that it was the two words rather than, like me, just the one length of sentiment. Trust me, that's far from straight. That's better. Just cut this down a bit. So we've got our Winter Wishes. So if we bring in our card again, and the more it dries, you can see that shimmer and the shimmer from the gel pen, which just adds to it just nicely. So I'm going to add the Winter Wishes just here. I haven't got my adhesive. There we go. So just add this here, like so. Give that time just to dry. And actually sit down, because we can add a little bit of shading just to the edge of that sentiment. Let's see if there's enough moisture just on here. No, there isn't. Just to blend that out a little bit. There we go. Let's just give that a dry. So then we've got our Winter Wishes on there, which just works quite nicely. And what I always do is I always go in, back in again, and sort of add those touches of white once again. Just to highlight them more, especially, I mean, that's still got that gold on there, but just to add them in a little bit more. Then I'm going to use my Posca pen and just add a few splatters of the white. There we go, lovely. Just so you can see, you've got the white, but you can still see that beautiful gold shimmer as well. And then I'm going to add that to a 5x7 card. Let's just put a piece of card underneath, because I don't like to add, that's just me personally, a black mat to my Christmas cards. I do like the white on white, or there's certain things I like for Christmas cards, but not really a black mat, unless I was doing sort of a black card, you know, like, let's just stick this down first before we start waffling about something else. So we'll just stick this down. Just avoiding the Posca. So the only time I'd sort of use black in my Christmas is if I used the spritz, the sprays, the distress spritz on black card. This is on black card. So what I'd do then is use my stencil and cut out that bauble, which with the distress spritz works beautifully. But today is all about vintage. So we've got a lovely vintage make. And then we can just add our little bird, which is, there it is. So we just place our background stamp back. And then we can get TE12 shadowed elements, and we can just grab the little bird and add our little bird just with an A7 acrylic block. Again, I'm just going to have a think where I want to add the bird. I don't want to, I always add it on the word, so I'm going to have it there. So I'm going to use my Nocturne ink. A bit of over inking there. I could have just left that rather than faff. So just bring my little bird here, like so, and just give that a few seconds for that black ink just to absorb onto the surface of the card. Let's place him back. And again, I would usually give that a few seconds before you add those touches of white. So we'll just take, there it is, the little Inktense pencil is what I was looking for, just to give that a little bit of shading. That's it, just because we don't want him just floating in midair. There we go. And then we've got our little bird. And again, you've got another card that's only got this, that's got any dimension. The rest is completely flat, but it just works really nicely. And then you can quite easily sort of create another flat card with the same ideas in different ways. So lots of ways to use them. And again, use your sprays on black card and use your bauble. Just lots of little ideas. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll give that a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.